Ever checked into a hotel, only to realize you're not alone? In this video, we're exploring 10 UK hotels where guests and staff have captured terrifying ghostly encounters on CCTV. These aren't just urban legends, they're real experiences that will make you think twice about that late-night hallway walk. From Victorian apparitions to unexplained shadows in empty corridors, these haunted locations have stories that will keep you up at night. 1. The Langham Hotel, London. One of the most famous ghost stories from the Langham Hotel in London involves a BBC journalist who stayed there in the 1970s. He had booked a room for the night and was working late when he suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The air turned freezing cold, and the lights flickered for no reason. Then, out of nowhere, he saw the figure of a man in Victorian clothing standing at the foot of his bed, pale, with hollow eyes, just staring at him. The journalist was so terrified that he immediately packed his things and left in the middle of the night, refusing to ever return. Years later, another guest staying in the same room reported waking up to the sound of someone pacing back and forth. When they checked, no one was there, but the footsteps continued. Hotel staff later admitted that this room, along with several others, was known for strange happenings. Some say it's haunted by the ghost of a German prince who died there in the 19th century, while others believe it's the spirit of a doctor who took his own life in the building. Even security cameras have picked up unexplained shadows moving in empty hallways. To this day, guests and employees swear they've felt unseen hands touching them or heard whispers when no one's around, proof that the Langham's past never really stays quiet. 2. The Mermaid Inn, Rye. The Mermaid Inn in Rye, East Sussex, is one of England's most haunted hotels, with a history stretching back to the 12th century. One of its most famous ghosts is a lady in white, believed to be the spirit of a young woman who died tragically centuries ago. Guests staying in room 16 have reported waking up to see her standing at the foot of the bed, silently watching them before vanishing into thin air. Others have felt an icy hand touch their shoulder in the dead of night, only to turn and find no one there. A particularly chilling incident happened in the 1980s when a couple staying in the inn's oldest room were woken by loud knocking on their door in the early hours. When they opened it, the hallway was empty, but the knocking continued, moving around the room as if something unseen was circling them. Later, staff told them that smugglers once used secret tunnels beneath the inn, and some never left. Even CCTV footage has captured strange shadows moving through the corridors when no living person is present. To this day, visitors report hearing ghostly laughter, seeing flickering lights, and even spotting a mysterious figure in period clothing sitting by the fireplace, only for it to disappear when approached. Whether it's the restless spirits of smugglers, heartbroken lovers, or long-dead residents, the Mermaid Inn's past refuses to stay buried. 3. The Jamaica Inn, Cornwall. The Jamaica Inn in Cornwall, made famous by Daphne du Maurier's novel, has a dark history of smuggling and violence, and many believe the spirits of its brutal past never left. One of the most chilling accounts happened to a young couple staying in one of the oldest rooms. They woke in the middle of the night to the sound of heavy boots stomping across their floor, though no one was there. Then came the distinct smell of tobacco and rum, smells often reported in connection with the inn's ghostly smugglers. Suddenly, the woman felt an invisible hand grab her wrist so tightly it left marks, while her partner watched in horror as the blankets were violently yanked off their bed by unseen forces. Staff have their own stories too. A night porter reviewing security footage once saw a shadowy figure walk through the closed front door and vanish. Others report hearing phantom horses and carriages outside, harking back to the inn's smuggling days. The most haunted spot is said to be the old stable block, where guests have reported seeing the ghost of a hanged man swaying from the rafters, a grim reminder of the inn's lawless past. With so many disturbing encounters over the years, the Jamaica Inn remains one of Britain's most actively haunted locations, where the line between past and present seems to blur in the dead of night. 4. Borthwick Castle, Midlothian. Borthwick Castle in Midlothian, Scotland, is a 14th century fortress with a reputation for restless spirits. One of the most persistent ghosts is said to be Mary, Queen of Scots, who once took refuge here with her lover, the Earl of Bothwell. Visitors have reported seeing her pale figure gliding through the castle's stone corridors, her long gown whispering against the ancient floors. A guest staying in the green room once woke to find a woman in period dress standing silently by the window. When they called out, the figure simply vanished into the shadows. But Mary isn't the only spirit said to linger. Staff have heard unexplained footsteps echoing through empty hallways, particularly near the Great Hall where history says secret meetings were once held. One night, a security guard checking CCTV footage spotted a strange mist forming near the fireplace. It swirled unnaturally before taking the shape of a man in armor, then dissolved into nothing. Others have reported sudden drops in temperature and the overwhelming scent of roses in rooms where no flowers were present. The castle's dark past seems to cling to its stones. Guests often speak of an uneasy feeling of being watched, and some have even captured mysterious orbs and shadows in their photographs. Whether it's the tragic queen or soldiers from centuries past, Borthwick Castle's ghosts refuse to be forgotten, making it one of Scotland's most haunted places. Before we reveal the next terrifying haunt, subscribe now to help us reach 1,000 subscribers by September 1st, 2025. 5. The Ancient Ram Inn, Gloucestershire. The Ancient Ram Inn in Gloucestershire is considered one of England's most haunted buildings, with a dark history dating back to the 12th century. A former vicar who owned the property in the 1960s reported being dragged from his bed by unseen hands, leaving scratch marks on his body. Others have encountered far worse. A builder working on renovations once fled after seeing a demonic figure with glowing red eyes staring at him from the shadows. The inn's most active spirit is said to be a witch named Rosie, who was executed nearby centuries ago. Guests sleeping in the witch's room have woken to find deep claw marks on their bodies and their beds violently shaking. One woman staying there swore she was pinned down by an invisible force while a woman's voice whispered in her ear. Others have heard children giggling in empty rooms and seen shadowy figures darting through the corridors. Even skeptics leave shaken. Paranormal investigators have captured ghostly voices on tape and recorded sudden temperature drops in certain spots. The owner himself has seen full-bodied apparitions and objects moving on their own. With its history of pagan rituals, murders, and rumored devil worship, the Ancient Ram Inn doesn't just have ghosts, it has something far darker lurking in its walls. Many believe the building sits on an ancient burial ground, and whatever rests there doesn't like visitors. 6. Chillingham Castle, Northumberland. Chillingham Castle in Northumberland has witnessed centuries of violence, torture, and death, and many believe the victims never left. One of the most famous ghosts is the Blue Boy, whose agonized cries echo through the castle at midnight. Guests in the Pink Room have reported seeing a blue glow around an old wall, followed by the apparition of a young boy in 18th century clothing. During renovations, workers discovered the skeletal remains of a child behind that very wall, his hands twisted as if he'd been buried alive. But the Blue Boy isn't the only restless spirit. Visitors often feel unseen hands pulling their hair or clothes, especially in the castle's gruesome torture chamber. A group of paranormal investigators once captured a chilling photo of a skeletal face peering from the darkness where no living person stood. Staff tell of doors slamming shut by themselves and shadowy figures seen walking through solid walls. The most terrifying encounter happened to a journalist staying overnight. She woke to see a pale woman in a white dress standing at the foot of her bed. When she screamed, the figure floated straight through the closed door. Others have heard phantom footsteps following them through empty corridors, only to turn and find nothing there. With its blood-stained history and countless ghostly sightings, Chillingham Castle remains one of Britain's most haunted places, where the past never stays buried. 7. The Skirrid Mountain Inn, Wales. The Skirrid Mountain Inn in Wales, dating back 900 years, has a sinister past as a former courthouse where over 180 people were hanged. Many guests report feeling an oppressive atmosphere the moment they step inside, especially near the wooden beam where executions took place. One couple staying in that hanging room woke to the sound of rope creaking above their bed, as if an invisible noose was swinging. When they turned on the lights, the noise stopped, but the smell of sweat and fear lingered in the air. A barmaid working late once saw a shadowy figure sitting at the bar after closing time. When she approached, the chair slid back on its own and the figure vanished. Others have heard phantom footsteps on the stairs and felt sudden chills in certain spots. The most disturbing encounter happened to a paranormal investigator who set up cameras overnight. The footage showed a dark mass moving through the empty pub before a chair flew across the room by itself. Locals whisper that the spirits of hanged criminals still linger, unable to move on. Some visitors have even reported feeling hands around their necks or hearing whispered pleas for mercy in empty rooms. With its violent history and countless unexplained occurrences, the Skirrid Mountain Inn remains one of Wales' most haunted locations, where the dead may outnumber the living. 8. The Golden Fleece, York. The Golden Fleece in York holds the grim distinction of being the city's most haunted pub, with a history stretching back to the 16th century. One notorious spirit is Lady Alice Peckett, the wife of a former owner, who has been seen gliding through the corridors in her long dress. But the most frightening presence is that of a Canadian airman who fell to his death from an upper window during World War II. Guests staying in the room where he died report waking to find a shadowy figure standing over their bed, his face twisted in anguish. Some have even felt invisible hands shaking them awake in the dead of night. The pub's cellars are particularly active, with staff reporting bottles flying off shelves by themselves. One barman locking up alone heard loud banging from below and went down to investigate, only to find the cellar empty but freezing cold, his breath visible in the air despite the heating being on. CCTV cameras have captured unexplained orbs of light moving through closed rooms, and visitors often report feeling someone breathing down their neck when no one's there. Perhaps most chilling was the experience of a medium who visited the pub. She suddenly began screaming that something had grabbed her legs, leaving visible red marks that took hours to fade. With its centuries of tragic deaths and violent history, the Golden Fleece remains a place where the past never sleeps, and neither do its ghostly residents. 9. The Drovers Inn, Loch Lomond. The Drovers Inn near Loch Lomond has been welcoming travelers, both living and dead, since 1705. One of its most famous ghosts is a little girl who drowned in the river centuries ago. Guests have reported seeing her pale figure standing at the foot of their beds, her dripping wet clothes leaving puddles that vanish moments later. A visiting family once woke to find their daughter having an animated conversation with an empty corner of the room. When asked who she was talking to, the child simply said, "The girl in the old dress who says she's always cold." But the girl isn't the only spirit roaming the inn's creaky corridors. Staff have heard phantom bagpipes playing in empty rooms and seen shadowy figures in Highland dress disappearing through walls. One bartender closing up alone watched in horror as a whiskey glass slid across the bar by itself before smashing on the floor. The most terrifying encounter happened to a guest staying in room 6, who woke to find a tall, dark figure standing over him. When he reached for the light, the apparition lunged at him before vanishing into thin air. With its history of drownings, murders, and tragic accidents, the Drovers Inn has collected more ghosts than most museums collect artifacts. Many believe the building sits on ancient burial ground, explaining why so many spirits seem trapped within its walls. Whether it's the playful ghost child or more sinister presences, one thing's certain, you'll never be truly alone in this 300-year-old inn. 10. The Adelphi Hotel, Liverpool. The Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool has a reputation for paranormal activity that chills even the most skeptical guests. One of the most disturbing encounters happened to a couple staying in room 303. They woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of a child sobbing uncontrollably outside their door. When the husband went to check, the hallway was empty, but the crying continued, seeming to come from all directions before suddenly stopping. As he returned to bed, both he and his wife clearly heard a little girl's voice whisper, "Help me," right beside their pillows. Staff tell of even darker occurrences. A night porter reviewing security footage once saw a shadowy figure of a woman in Victorian dress gliding down the grand staircase, only for the image to distort and disappear when it reached the bottom. Others report hearing phantom parties in empty ballrooms, complete with ghostly laughter and the clinking of glasses, only for the sounds to cut off abruptly when investigated. The most famous ghost is said to be a suicidal actress from the 1920s who haunts the 4th floor. Guests have reported seeing her reflection in mirrors when no one is standing there, and feeling an icy hand grab their wrist in the elevator. With its history of tragic deaths and mysterious disappearances, the Adelphi remains a place where the past never checks out, and some guests may overstay their welcome indefinitely.